We are so excited to have all of you today, and it's a pleasure to take this discussion forward on a topic which everybody's having a lot of challenges on. All of us are facing too many difficulties in bringing this one solution to this problem, but we are not able to achieve. To have that done, definitely you'll all be very excited to welcome one of our valued guests, Miss Susan Walsh. She is also a co-founder, a founder of the Classification Guru. So, Susan, over to you. Please help us know a little bit about your experience and how did you come into this data classification series.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks so much for having me on. I fell into this by accident. I had no procurement or data background whatsoever. And then 11 years ago, I joined a spend analytics company. So I learned how to classify spend data, normalize suppliers. And I spent 5 years with them and grew a team. And I had about 14 people working for me at the end. And when I decided it was time to move on, I didn't really know where I could get a job doing the same thing. So I decided to set up the Classification Guru. That was 6 years ago this month. And since then, we have been classifying dirty spend data, normalizing suppliers, cleaning CRM systems, cleaning supplier data for ERP implementations. I've written a book called Between the Spreadsheets, classifying and fixing dirty data, sharing some of my knowledge so that people can do it in something as simple as Excel. And I'm really just trying to shine light on what is can be quite a dull topic.
Interesting, interesting. We're excited, and I was not aware about the book. Would love
Yeah.
to kind of go through it and learn what are the best practices that you have suggested on that.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, one of the points I would request all our audience to kindly tell us where they are from, and so that
Yes.
we can relate the discussion. We've been into different countries before. Today, we are in a country which Susan will tell us. Tell us where are you at the moment, and how has it been in last couple of days? I could see that you have traveled to London as well for one of the events. So tell us a little bit about where are you at the moment.
Yeah, well, my accent might tell you that I'm from Scotland, but actually I live just outside London in the UK. But I have been traveling all over the world this year already. Spent quite a bit of time in the US. So I do like to travel around and spread the word about dirty data and how to clean it.
Interesting, interesting. I can see some of the comments coming in. Some of the people are from different places. We
Yeah, we've
are
got a
live on different. Yeah, please.
yeah, no, it's great. We've got pretty much the whole globe covered, I think. And that's pretty good for a
Absolutely.
Sunday afternoon slash evening.
Absolutely, absolutely. And today we are not just on LinkedIn. We are into multiple platforms. We are on Twitter. We're live on Twitter. We are live on Facebook and different platforms. So LinkedIn
YouTube
is
and
definitely one
LinkedIn
place.
as well. Yeah, we're everywhere.
So we have Hussein from UAE, and we have a few people who have joined us from UK, from Dubai. Great. So I think we are good to start. We have a bit of an understanding where people are from, so that we can relate the discussion, and moving on. So Susan, help us a little bit about how do I measure? How do I measure? I do a lot of data management activities, managing the spreadsheets and working on different excels. How do I know if I am doing perfect work or if my analysis is bad? So give us a little bit light on knowing that whether it is good or bad.
That's a great question. And actually I would also say that regardless of where we are in the world, we all share the same common problems of data quality issues. And it really depends on the type of data that you're working with. But a really quick way to find out what the quality of your data, spend data is, say spend data, for example, um, go to a supplier that you know really well and check how that's classified. So if that's a supplier in the MRO space, and you know that you're buying nuts, bolts, screws, hammers, and tools from them, then you would expect your classification to be hardware and tools and things like that. Again, if you search for supplier names with the word hotel in it, and we can do this simply in Excel, you would expect all those company names, or most of the supplier names with hotel in it, to actually be hotels, either for accommodation or venue hire. If you have a taxi in there, for example, then you know you've got a problem with your data. If you have consultancy in there, then you know there's a problem. So there's some really quick, easy checks you can do in a pivot table or in the data itself, just to check if the basics are right. Because if the basics are not right, then you know you have a problem with the rest of your data set.
Interesting points there. But where is the problem? What is the problem that you see in today's time, in terms of working around these spreadsheets?
Data problems are people problems. That's ultimately where your issues are coming from. It's inputting the data at source. And we have to realize that a lot of the people who input the data are not data professionals. They don't care about the quality and data governance and master data. Their job is just to input invoices or POs all day, or input products into an ERP, set up material master descriptions. They don't necessarily understand the impact of what they do on the rest of the business. And so what we really need to do is target those people who are inputting the data and get them to be more passionate about being right. But then there's an
Absolutely.
awful lot of data that's already been entered in that's wrong and that we need to correct as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, there are too many technologies around talking about data management, talking about classification. So, is there a possibility that we can use a software to classify the data where we are working, and that classification happens through the technology?
Well, there are certain aspects when it comes particularly to spend data classification where software can work. So I was talking about MRO earlier, maintenance, repair, and ops, for anyone that doesn't know. And that is where you're buying like lumber, timber, steel, metal, nuts, bolts, screws, fixers. Those things are pretty black and white when it comes to classification. So software for those kind of items works really well. Where you have maybe, say, a marketing company that's doing creative advertising, PR, that can be a bit more tricky for software to understand. Or even, I'm just writing a blog at the moment about the introduction of AI and ChatGPT and how it's not going to take over the world. Because, like, for example, DHL, global company, a lot of us smaller businesses will be using that as a courier, but a lot of manufacturing companies will be using it for warehousing, logistics, transportation, even maybe co-packing. And if everything's classified to courier, then you're going to be mismanaging your own spend. So context can be really tricky within spend data classification. And I don't think we're quite there yet with the software, but we are in certain areas. Office supplies and stationery is another really good example of where you can probably get really great classification. But yeah, no, it's you have to be careful. Don't just blindly trust the software. I'd say always have a person check it afterwards.
Okay, point taken. That's a good takeaway, definitely for the audience. So, where is the major problem? Where is the major problem in data management? Is it people? Is it technology? Is it the way spreadsheets are being managed? Is it the groups, different groups that manages the data? So, where is the problem within this?
There are so many problems within the big problem. So, for example, first of all, you might have your data in lots of silos or different systems, and you can't get a full picture because everything's in different places and you can't bring it together. You could have problems, again, we just talked about inputting the data. That can cause lots of problems if that's not correct. We see a lot of data issues with mergers and acquisitions of companies. When you bring two companies together, that can cause a whole load of data problems. What else do we have? One of the biggest kind of things that I am an advocate for that doesn't happen very often is maintenance of data. So it's not good enough to just fix it, yeah, or have it right at the start. You need to maintain it and spot check it and make sure that it stays accurate, because people can accidentally delete things, they can cut and paste over things. And if you're not checking, you don't know. And then that could be causing lots of problems further down the line.
Thank you, Susan, for that. One point which I would probably
Yeah.
request our audience today is to please write down your questions, and we will request. Susan has given us time today after. We have waited for this moment to make sure that we touch upon topics, we touch upon this specific topic, and where is the problem, we understand how the solutions, what are the solutions around it. So if you have any questions, please, you can put it across in the chat box, and we will request Susan to answer those questions in today's time. While our objective remains that we want to keep this discussion up to 20 minutes max, we try to do it in 15 minutes, but max 20 minutes. So we'll try to cover up all those questions which we might have.
I could
So,
talk all
Susan,
day about this. So yeah, let's cut it short and make sure it's short and sweet.
absolutely. That's the intent that we show towards when we are so emotionally attached to the work we are doing and the solutions that we are bringing. But at the same time, we have to look at people are in their weekend today, but the intent and the focus which they are showing in today in terms of getting into this call and trying to learn something new which they can kind of go back and implement in the organization that they're working for.
Yeah.
So I
Can I
have.
just answer this question from Enoch about leveraging machine learning in software? That is great, but it has to learn from clean training data sets, and you have to have people check in that stuff first. So you have to know that what you're putting into the machine learning is accurate, because otherwise it's rubbish in, rubbish out. So again, yes, machine learning can help, but you have to check it before it goes in and then check it the other end again.
Good question. Good question from Enoch, and thank you for raising that. I want to quickly check in the chat. Some of the people have raised a few other questions. We have Charles from UK. We have
We've got a
Steve
few
from.
UK people, so hello. It's,
Uh,
it's quite warm and cloudy here today. We've got hot weather, but it's a bit muggy.
okay, the place where we are in, it is about 45 to 47 degrees, but
Yeah,
the facilities are there. That's the best
you
part of it.
have aircon. We don't have aircon here in the UK. It doesn't exist in houses, so yeah, it's a
True.
struggle.
It's a struggle. I can definitely understand. So we have Charlie from UK, from Steve from Australia. We have Hussein from UAE. Welcome everyone. We have Yasser Ismail from Dubai. We have Ishwar Padmanabhan from Dubai, UAE. Mohammed from Pakistan. Joseph from UK. Thank you all for joining in and always motivating us to bring these wonderful initiatives. And thanks to Susan once again for joining in for the discussion. We have Christina from Egypt. Thank you very much, Christina. Faryal from Dubai and Enoch from Dubai. Enoch, thank you very much. That was a wonderful question. And yes, Yasser, good data in, good data out. It's a Gigo formal kind of format, which is, you put garbage in, the garbage is out. Anup from Dubai and Lara is there as well, and Haris from Dubai. The reason why I'm mentioning these names and their locations is to kind of reference where all people are kind of interested in these kind of topics and
Yeah.
what value that we can kind of bring in. What we have achieved is always best to kind of share those live references, because you cannot find in books, you cannot find those experiences in books, the latest what is happening. If somebody has achieved, that can always be leveraged. So Yasser has a question,
Yeah.
Susan, and he's asking, can you shed some light on the impact of DQ in data quality in supply chain management operations? Please, over to you.
Yeah. We're actually helping a client out right now, and we are reworking their material master data. So they have a SKU, an SKU, they have the product description, and it can be that you can have one product and it can be listed maybe 4 or 5 different times because it's been input into the system different ways. So we are rewording and reordering each description so that it's the noun first, then the modifier, then maybe it's the size, it might be the material type, and then other bits of information. And what that shows is then you have like multiple versions of the same product, which means if you're planning for inventory, for example, you might think, oh, we've only got 50 of this, but you've got another 3 versions of that SKU with another 100 quantities. So you think you've got 50 in stock, but you've actually got 200. So it has impact on that. It has impacts on when you're trying to ship things out because you think you might not have enough stock and you can't fulfill a client's order, but you find it's actually against a different SKU number, but it's the same product. So that can have an impact too. I know that in retail, if you short an order or if you don't deliver on time, you can get heavily penalized for things like that. So there's a cost involved. So it can be, and also just people's time, like the time it takes you to find the product you're looking for. If it's not labeled correctly, it means you could end up sending the wrong thing out as well. So there's a lot of different impacts, but it can be financial, which is not good for the business.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that. I want to put up one question which we have from a LinkedIn user. And this question is for Susan. Definitely, she's the expert and she'll help us with the answer on these points. What is your recommendation or approach when you know the data is faulty? Okay, end of story, definitely. But you have to work with it. Okay, yes, that's the truth. I mean, it's a
It is.
very very good question.
Yeah.
Sometimes we cannot hide it, we have to live with it. So
Yeah.
she's also giving her, and he or she is also giving an approach. My general approach is to do as much comparison, but is anything else, honestly, it can be frustrating for sure. So
Okay.
over to you, Susan. What to do
Yeah.
with the data when you know it is not the right data?
So I'm going to assume that you can export this from one system and you have it in one Excel flat file. And if it was spend data or classification, for example, I would say focus on the top 80% of value of your spend. Because the top, yeah, yeah, top 80% of value is probably about 20% of your data set. So it's not a huge amount to fix. Now, if you can't change it in the system, what you can do is create a mapping document in your Excel file so you can correct what you think is wrong. And then every time you need to update your file, you can pull through a new export and map using a V or XLOOKUP or whatever tools you're using. So that would be like one really quick way. If it's not kind of like spend data and it's not financial, then I would say like, your top 80% volume of SKUs or products, because that's probably again 20. It's normally the 80-20 rule. So try and get the really high value, high usage, high spend stuff correct, which won't take that long in the grand scheme of things. And then when you have time, focus on the bottom 20% of value, which normally is about 80% of the data. So that, I hope that kind of helps and answers her question or his question a little bit.
It definitely helps me. I will try to replicate that and utilize that. Data is the biggest problem in terms of having a valid data, in terms of having it organized. And at the same time, if you have the right data, you do perfect predictive analysis, you can do your descriptive analysis, and you can do your prescriptive analysis. So all of these things, forecasting, budgeting, you can do it perfectly, but all depends on your data. If it is right, it's perfect, you are in a perfect place. And data is also called the new oil, or a
Oh,
new gold as of today. Trust me, the data is the new
yeah. Well,
gold in today's
I
time.
don't know if you know Scott Taylor. He's the data whisperer, but he does not. He says data is not the new oil.
Oh, is it?
He said it's more like water or air. You kind of you need it to sort of clean data. You need it to survive, which is
True,
true.
true. Actually, that is true. Yes, absolutely. If it is not clean, you cannot survive. So, the last question that we had, I can see it was from Faryal. Thank you very much for such an interesting question. I have a few chats. Maybe sometimes it doesn't get updated in the
Yeah,
reviews.
I'm
So,
just looking at one. Someone had a question around IoT technology to optimize the quality of data from the source. Not the data that I'm working with. We don't have IoT technology, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't leverage it. Again, for me, it's about using the right technology for the right job. There isn't one tool that's going to fix all your problems. So if you can use IoT and maybe that's used in the warehouse to kind of scan, monitor, and track usage of what's in the bins and things, great, but also get people to go in and spot check that the quantities match, that the inventory matches, do spot checks. That's where most people will fall foul of really dirty data is not doing the spot checks and realizing that it's not right. Because if it's not right, you can do something about it.
absolutely. Thank you, Susan, for covering that. We have another question from Lara Kavi, and she is asking a question highlighting what is required in training our people on data analysis skills and importance of calculated decision making. Oh, definitely. That's an excellent question. They will hence value the importance of data they're working on. And I think you rightly mentioned, Susan, in one of the points that culture, knowledge, awareness is more than the systems that are
Yeah.
managing the data. So it's an excellent question. Thank you, Lara, for raising that question. Over to you, Susan, on this particular point.
Yeah, actually, so she's raised a great thing. Shameless plug of the book again, Between the Spreadsheets. But I have in here, I created something called the data coat. And it's basically make sure your data has its coat on, like a jacket. And the first thing is, and this will be universally recognized by anyone from the receptionist in the building up to the CEO. So first of all, make sure your data is consistent. So let's use the same date formats, the same units of measure, the same terminology, the same process. Make sure everyone's doing it the same way. Then, of course, your data needs to be organized. So think about, do you need to have it by country, by region, by business unit, by business company, by person? Have that all categorized in the data and ready to go so that when someone asks you the question, how much did we sell in the UK last week? You can just pull that data right out. Then, of course, it's got to be accurate. Now, define what accurate is within your different business area. Obviously, finance, you need 100% accurate data. But in other areas, it might be about making sure that when you're setting up a product, you have the unit of measure, the material type, the name is formatted correctly. So once you have your consistent, your organized, and your accurate data, guess what? It's going to be trustworthy. And that's what we're all looking for. So all the time I hear about lack of trust in the data. So I tell everyone, make sure that you put your data coat on, but also once it's on, make sure it stays on all year round. No matter how hot it gets outside, keep the data coat on all year round.
Interesting points. Good questions coming in. I'm getting a lot of refresher. But with that, the biggest question a lot of people have is Chat GPT going to take my job if I am a data
No,
analyst?
yeah, no, no, no. In fact, we're experimenting with it, and in several cases, it's going to enhance or make our job more efficient. But again, you have to check the output, check where that source is coming from, because it's coming from the internet, and not everything on the internet is true. So you just have to be very careful.
So, is my data perfect? Can ever my data be perfect? How much
No.
ever I invest, how much ever I spend on things, can my data be perfect?
Well, it can, but for like maybe a second in time, because as soon as people start using data, it gets contaminated and corrupted and changes. So I think we should be realistic about not aiming for perfect, but aiming for usable and fit for purpose.
Interesting point. So, Christina has a question. The session contents will be shared. Yes, definitely. So, we are also on YouTube. You can refer to our YouTube videos. We keep this video active. We don't delete it. So, you can always refer to this. And probably in future, we are trying to build in a lot of content around which can be shared as PDF slides. So definitely, yes, that's a good point. And yes, so Kalenzi also echoes with your point, Susan, that yes, data can never be perfect because it can change anytime, and if it's shared data, for
Yeah, and
sure.
then if it's shared, it ends up in different Excel files, and then you have like 5 versions of the same thing. So yeah, it gets messy.
True. And the versions of those files, latest one, latest five, latest 10, and the latest one. So
Yeah,
it's
we've
so
all been there.
interesting. And one of the also reasons why we go into those latest files is because when there is technology, people don't stick to technology. They want to take out files outside, do their evaluation, and then data doesn't go back into the system. So I think one of the also recommendations from my experience, I'm not a data expert, but from a practical experience, when I do analysis of large files, thousands and hundreds and thousands of cells which are there, the basic thing is, if you have a technology, please utilize that technology. Don't print out, don't pull it out every time in the Excel document, and
Yeah.
not keep it back there. Yeah, please,
I
Susan.
mean, that's really why I did the book, and also I have an online training course called Fixing Dirty Data, and it is just doing it in Excel because that is everyone's natural default. All organizations use a lot of different tools, but the one common tool that we all have is Excel. And the other thing is, like, say, for example, you're using Salesforce and you want to clean up some of your data. When you export the data, you can pull a unique ID out with it. So you can
Yes.
change the data in your sheet, re-upload the data, it will match on the unique ID and change and update that the data that you've worked on. And a lot of systems have that capability. So it's possible a lot of the time.
Interesting point. So Susan, just to rephrase what you are saying all the data that we pull out, there should always be a reference ID, reference point. So when it goes back, it connects with the right kind of data where it's being secured.
Yeah.
Interesting,
And that should
interesting.
be a unique ID as well. So like even if it's numbered 1 to 100,000, you shouldn't have any more than one number 1, one number 2, one number 3.
Okay, sounds good. So we have, and I think this relates to me, how I use the file. One file doesn't get shared in multiple places. So
Yeah,
thank you very much, Yasser, for that. So
we use
SharePoint is
that
one
here.
good
Yeah,
solution
we do
for
that. Yeah,
keeping one
make sure
file
there's one
updated by
version.
all. We use it and we love it. So that's a good point that you have shared, Yasser. Thank you very much for that. Uh, so multiple solutions, the big all the Gartner reports, Forrester reports, IDC reports, so many reports around there. Is there any report or solution that is recommended that can solve all my problems? Is there anything like that?
Sadly, not. I think it's known that sometimes solutions do pay to get on these charts, these quadrants and tables and things. But also, you could have one tool, and there's two businesses that have similar needs. For one of the businesses, the tool is absolutely perfect, and the other one, it doesn't work properly. So it's very much about finding the right tool for your business and your data and what works for you. And it might be multiple tools. You might need to split that into different tools for different areas, but don't expect there to be one magic tool out there to solve everything. Sorry.
Great point there. Being honest is also extremely important instead of kind of showing the bigger and a better picture always.
Yeah,
So,
and
so
the best tool on the list that's won awards might not be the right tool for your business. It doesn't mean it's a bad tool. It just means it's not right for what you
for
need.
you. Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where the benchmarking exercises come in. similar kind of organizations, similar kind of businesses, what are they doing? So we have to step out of our comfort zone, try to connect with people who have actually done it and utilize from their experience. So I have a few comments that have come in. Himani Kamal, she's saying yes, data problem is people problem. That's a lot of people are echoing with what you have highlighted, Susan. And I think we have quite a few questions, which is not possible to cover all of them today. And today is the first session. Let me be very honest, Susan. We have so many questions at the same time. We have crossed 10 additional minutes. We try to keep it
I
max till.
told you I could talk about this all day. What I
So,
promised to do is go through the chat on LinkedIn and respond to as many as I can.
wow, that will be so kind of you. Thank you very much, Susan, for that. The last question before I leave, we have talked about all the best scenarios, all the best things. We do the best. This is the system, whether it can do or not. Tell us what is your one mistake that we should be careful of not doing it, not committing it while doing our data management.
I mean, just one. I would say, honestly, mistakes are the best way to learn, and that I've learned so much through mistakes. So don't ever, beat yourself up about making mistakes. I think I think the one thing is just always do that final check of your data before it goes out the door to a report, to a client, to a customer. Take a step away, 5 minutes away from the screen, come back to your data with fresh eyes and just do one last final check. And that
Interesting.
always kind of saves some awkward conversations.
So there you are. If you are committing mistakes, so the experts have also done it. So no need to be worried about it. We are all making mistakes, but
Yeah.
what we learn from that is extremely important. Uh, I don't want to close this session, but because we have made sure that we don't go beyond 30 minutes, which 20 minutes today, we have gone 35 minutes beyond. So I want to take leave and I want to thank all of you for joining in, to all the wonderful audience who have taken time on a Sunday
Yeah.
afternoon in UK, and in different part of the world. It is evening in UAE, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, in Sharjah, in different places. It is almost night, 8 o'clock in India, in different part of the world. Thank you very much for keeping us motivated to bring in this best value for you. And we will not stop here. We will definitely bring you all the best practices, latest, coming in right from the experts who have done it, who have experienced those challenges, and who have provided best value to one of the best organizations, some of the best organizations in the world. Thank you once again. Thank you, Susan, for taking time out. It's so nice to have you today
Thank
in
you.
the Broke Talk, the Supply Chain Management Talk show. And we are looking forward to continue this conversation in future. And thank you very much to everyone for joining in. See you. Goodbye.
Thank you.